Hey everyone, welcome to the All In Show. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. This podcast is about raw stories, real conversations, and lessons from entrepreneurs, first responders, creators, community leaders, and everyday people with experiences worth sharing. If you enjoy what we're building, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every subscription helps this show reach people and allows us to continue bringing on incredible guests. Now, with that being said, let's get into the show. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in again. This is the All In Show where we have raw conversations, real stories, and we go all in. And today, every guest is special, but today I have an interesting guest that I know little about, so I'm excited to dive into the story. And it's going to be a real conversation, it's going to be a raw story. So I'm excited to get into this. Today, I have Kenny White with me. He has been through so many challenges within the past few years that has inspired the community of Pueblo to just keep persevering through mental and physical times. And that really inspires me because to see where you have struggled and to see how you have overcome that challenge and kind of get back to the community tells a lot about how far you come, who you were, and who you are now. So, Kenny, thank you for coming on to the All In Show.
I mean, I'm ecstatic to be here. I just recently found out about your show, what you're doing, your audience, and it is very exciting to be here. I'm always excited to share my story because it is absolutely crazy, and so many people were part of my success, and I love to share that message that we're all in this together, and and it's just been incredible. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. Let's get to the start of it all, man. Are you a Pueblo native?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I moved here when I was a really young boy. I went to school here. I went to Centennial High School. Went to the University of Colorado, and I came back and started my career here.
Okay. I also went to
All
Centennial.
right, go
Bulldogs,
Bulldogs,
right?
baby. Yeah.
It's so funny. I have this conversation with a lot of people at work. It seems like it comes up more often than not. Even like me and Tammy were talking about this, and she was like, she told me that seems to be the number one question. If you're from Pueblo, that's the question you ask.
It
Is
is wild.
what high school do you go
it's
to?
just, it's a never been anywhere like that. You know what? But we got a lot of pride, and it is such a great community to be a part of.
We did, man. We do have a lot of pride. It's so awesome. So awesome, bro. What career did you dive into right after high school?
Well, like I said, I went to the University of Colorado, came back home. I really was a little aimless. I didn't really have a lot of direction, to my dad's chagrin. And my brother actually, my big sister. My big sister is the VP of admissions and director of extended studies at CSU Pueblo. And when I came back, she wasn't. She started out as a teacher at East High School, so she has her own awesome story to where she's at now. But my brother and I went up there. He's got an engineering degree. I got a business degree, and he's my little brother. And he got a job with Bechtel right out of college, coming down here to work at the D mill as an engineer. And I had absolutely no no plans. I didn't know what I was doing. And I went to a graduation party with my big sister at the time. She was a teacher at East High School, and Tom Wright was the general sales manager for Channel 5. And we were just talking, and he offered me an advertising sales job at Channel 5 at KOAA. And yeah, I loved it. So I went around selling commercials, and they trained me. They taught me a lot. I owe a great, for many reasons, I owe a lot of my success. I owe a lot of the race success to Ross White, another great white, and Diane Derby. They helped me get the first race off the ground. That we can go over that later, and that led me to Southwest Motors, and I had the good fortune to work with Mike Savislin at first as a TV sales rep, and Southwest Motors really took off, and I knew I didn't want to be in the advertising sales world anymore. I loved it, but you really have to travel to move up in that business. Like a lot of businesses, you got to go to other places, run sales teams, and I was like, I like Pueblo. I love Southern Colorado. Why would I leave? And I just kept coming back to this. I had a passion for Southwest Motors. She was my biggest account by far. I would go by Southwest Motors almost every week, talk about the ads he'd been running. We wrote the commercials together, and basically I went to see him one day around Thanksgiving, and I said, "Well, I'm going to quit my job." And he says, "I don't want to lose you. I mean, you." And I said, "That's perfect." And I put a proposal on his desk to come work for him, and we started an in-house advertising agency called Pick and Slash Advertising together. And I moved over full-time to Southwest Motors, helped out with his internet department, and started selling cars. And I worked there for 13 years. I became a sales manager. We like the Southwest Motors Event Center. He and I did that together with Chris Wiseman and Danny Griffith. I don't know what Danny's doing now, but she's an awesome person. And Chris were great to work with. And you see the directional signs around town that say the Southwest Motors Event Center, and a lot of the ads that we wrote together. And we grew to be the at one point, number 7, I think 7th independent car dealership in the United States. Independent operation. And that it was amazing. I mean, I can't say enough about that part of my life and the things I learned working there and being a part of a company so committed to the community that it's in, and an individual and a family and a team that was so committed to the idea of selling a product at a fair price, standing behind that product. And then one night in 11/15 of 2023, I closed the store and went home, and I cranked up Whiskey Myers at like 9 o'clock, and I think it was John Wayne or something was on, and my little daughter was running around the living room in our house, and we have a ranch home, so it's just a carpet and concrete. And she started jumping off the couch, and I was pretty deep into an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic, and I was I wasn't drunk at the time, but I was extremely overweight and all those things. But I still wanted to be a good dad. You know, my daughter was I was still my pride and joy, you know. And I just had my second daughter. Her first birthday was coming up. And so I decided I was going to jump off the couch and she was doing a somersault, and I was like, oh man, I could do that. You know, I'm like, you know, not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. Right. Toby Keith.
Mm-hmm.
And my beautiful wife, she said, well, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. And I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. Right. and I went to jump off the couch, and in a complete, total freak accident, the support structures in the ottoman broke, and I had already started catapulting off the couch, and it sent me head first into the concrete. You know, it's just a little piece of carpet, and I hit my head so hard. And if you ever saw the show Sports Science, you might be a little young for that, but it was pretty awesome. And they would recreate sports using this imaging and show like how hard Mike Tyson hit. And anyway, I recreated it on my Instagram. This is how I broke my neck. But if you scroll through, and I hit my head so hard that the centrifugal forces, they centralized on my C6 vertebrae, right? So if you count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it exploded in what is known as a burst fracture. and I was laying there face down. I don't believe that I was knocked unconscious, but if I was, I rebooted so fast. But I just remember I had an invisible, like, energy field around my body. And I was just like, oh my God, what just happened? Like, I mean, a literal rocket went off in my neck, in my cervical spine. And my wife's like, Kenny, Kenny, Kenny. And she rolled me over onto my back, and that was the extent of any movement that we did, because I knew something was drastically wrong. And pretty quickly, I could tell I had no feeling below the C6. So about right here, above the shoulders, above the hump on your back, I had no movement whatsoever. The brain signal that going down your spinal cord, which is like the Ethernet cable of your body, right? Sends all the, you want to move your foot, it starts in your brain and it goes down your body, right? Well, there was no signal past the C6. And my dad lives very close to me, so I said, hey, call my dad, call 911. So AMR, shout out AMR. They showed up also very rapidly, and I'll never forget my dad's my dad says it's probably a pinched nerve. And I'm like going, no, it's not a pinched nerve. But AMR got there. And the other kind of funny side story is I thought that my legs were like floating in the air, kind of almost in like a happy baby pose for yoga. And I was like, honey, put my legs down. I don't know why I said that, but I didn't want to look foolish, when the ambulance guys got there, right? Clinging to that foolish pride. And she's like, your legs are on the ground. And I was like, oh my God. Oh, okay. All right. This is bad. This is not a positive. Anyway, AMR, they did all the correct things that they should do. Put me on the board, carried me out of the house, took the ambulance ride. My mother was, she had my daughters and was trying to, my Aria, she didn't know what to do, and I get emotional talking about my daughters. They've been through so much, and they've never wavered. But anyway, they took me to the hospital, took one scan, and immediate were like, get this guy out of here. And so they put me on the helicopter, the flight Lifeline, the UC helicopter, and took me to Memorial Central. One thing that's kind of interesting is, like, most trauma situations, right? Let's say you're bleeding or something. Well, I was completely conscious. So I remember all of it. I mean, it's like 15 minutes to get from Parkview to UC Memorial. Like, we're flying, literally. And we landed, and they took me into the OR, and I'm like going in like it's Grey's Anatomy. I mean, there's just lights everywhere, and one thing that was pretty fortunate is they were able to start game planning immediately with the scans. So also I was in a trauma emergency setting, but it wasn't like he's gonna bleed out. So they were able to make a plan. The inimitable, incredible Dr. Rahul Singh had not left for the night, and decided to take my case. And he came in and told me, well, you're going to have surgery, and it's better to do it sooner.
I'm going to just adjust your mic
real
quick. There we go. That should be a little more.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do I need to repeat anything?
No, you're good. You can keep going.
Okay. And, I'm laying there in the hospital bed, and he's like, you got to have surgery. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You broke your neck, and you have spinal cord damage. So, I've never been one to shy away from a challenge. And I said, well, let's go then. Like, now. If you say we got to do it faster is better, let's get it on, And so he went to prepare the OR, went to do his game plan, and my brother, he lives in Westminster. He'd arrived. My sister, she was asleep actually, and her phone was on silent, and they got a hold of my nephew Lane, who's 11, I think, at the time, maybe 10, and he went and woke his mom up and said, "It's Uncle Kenny's been hurt." And everybody, it probably first thought it was some kind of DUI wreck, and I don't blame him. I mean, I was an alcoholic all the way, and but that's not the case. That's not what happened, and we had my wife let me leave a message to my daughters, where I basically just said, "You guys are the lights of my life," because there was so much uncertainty. I mean, they're gonna open up my spine, right? And they actually had to go in through the neck. They have to take out all the bone fragments and everything, so they kind of like pull apart. You go around the esophagus and clean everything out, and then slide in a spacer, like lifting a truck, but it's a titanium spacer to hold it, because you can't do anything. The bone is gone. I don't have a C6 vertebrae anymore. And then they put a cage around it, and then they put you on your back, and they fused, they decompressed the spinal cord, and then they put the bars on either side, the rods, and fused from the C4 to the T1. And my sister arrived just before I went back to the OR. I had some opportunity to make sure some ducks were in a row. I had made some decent decisions with advanced directives, but not all of them. And we had an emergency. Somehow we found a notary to show up at the hospital to do some things, and then bam, I went back to the operating room, and it was over 11 hours later before the surgery was complete. And I remember a little bit. I've heard most of the things I don't remember, but Dr. Singh came and told my family the surgery wasn't as good as it possibly could, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, do not expect him to make a full recovery. And what I've learned about Dr. Singh is that was basically him telling my family, like, good luck, right? I did what I could, but he's going to have a really long, hard road. And due to the circumstances behind my injury, the surgery, the trauma associated with my injury, the alcoholism, I went into basically like a 3-week delirium, maybe a 4-week delirium. And I remember bits and pieces about being at the hospital in the ICUs, but I would like check out. I remember all that, but I was basically totally insane. And I was in a delirious. I had imaginary friends. I thought at one point I was being taken care of by a cult of nurses. It might be or maybe not. We're going to harvest my organs. I mean, there was a lot to the delirious state. I mean, my belief is that was my brain's way of protecting me from the gravity of my situation. Right, because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. I lost control of my bowel and bladder. I mean, my hands are these souvenirs, but I had no arm strength at all, no trunk strength. I could wiggle my left toes a little bit, and one thing I do remember with a lot of clarity was that I knew that I had been praying and asking for some way to escape this monster, right? This alcoholism. I knew that I was killing myself. I knew that I was going to lose everything. I mean, my family, my wife, my job. They had all been extremely patient with me, and I was on a runaway freight train, and I don't know what it would have taken to get me off of that, but I'd say read the fine print, right? But I in some ways I really believe this accident was an answer to prayer, and I just remember thinking to myself, laying there, wherever I am right now and whatever's going to come out of this, I'm better off. And I'm totally paralyzed, right? Than I was before this accident. And that I am not going to waste my time, and that I am going to fight back. I'm going to get back everything. I am going to make my life better than it ever was, and I'm going to dedicate my life to being the best father and the best husband I can be, and I'm going to show gratitude with every moment I have left for whatever I get back. And it sounds crazy. I mean, I couldn't even hit the emergency button to call for help. They had to set up this whistle device for me to whistle into because my hands were so mangled, and I still don't have any tricep strength. My triceps have no brain connectivity, or very, very little. And obviously there's other things associated with that, but those are some of the big ones. I mean, I'm actually technically a quadriplegic still. And it means, all limbs affected by your injury. Well, I'm a high functioning quad, but I am not in any way, shape, or form. Every part of my body is affected by this injury. And we started the long road back. I mean, and it was a road that it had so many challenges. I couldn't even go over everything, but just I guess the highlights is my brother helped get me into Craig Hospital, and it's the premier spinal cord rehab facility in America, maybe in the world. And my insurance actually rejected, and we have great insurance too, but they rejected Craig said, we'll take him. And they have an admissions team that fought tooth and nail to get me admitted as well. But the insurance company said, he'll recover at the same type at a lower level facility. And there's only about 200,000 living spinal cord injury people in America right now. I mean, I'm in a pretty exclusive club. And because of the low number of survivors, there's like 4 major rehab facilities that are like the New York Yankees, the Dodgers, and then you go down to like Centennial High School baseball. Like that's the next level, right? From the Yankees to high school baseball. And nothing against other places, but that's just how far the gap is. And at least from what I know. And thank God that my brother was patient and he had dogged determination, and he fought, and they got the appeal, and I was admitted to Craig. And I was still pretty out of my mind when we got to Craig. I thought I took an ambulance that could fly and drive. And so when we got into traffic, I thought that it got in the air and then went to a place where it could set back down and drive again. And my little brother, in his attempt to kind of get me to realize how crazy I was, he's like, why didn't it just fly all the way? And I was like, I didn't make it. I didn't build this contraption. You know what I mean? I really believe that I kind of flew to Denver. And they always joke about every person that was there the day I got admitted, for months would be like, oh, I was there. I was like, I know, I understand that I threatened to kill people, and can we stop talking about this, please? Okay, I know, I understand, you know what I mean? But it was like, I was like this, everybody knew the psycho guy that showed up. I had a minder, so they wouldn't let me out of my room without somebody with me at all times. And to get this in perspective, I can't move my arms or legs, and they still thought I needed somebody around, you know what I mean? And I had this power wheelchair, and it was on the lowest setting you could imagine a power wheelchair could be on. Like, it was a crawl. And I was like, as I started to get less crazy and started to go into the Craig hospital, I mean, and I don't know what you know about spinal cord injuries, but the very basics are, there are 2 kinds. Complete injury, which is your spinal cord is severed into 2 pieces. And there's very little hope for regain function. I'm like almost minuscule. Everything below the injury is never going to work again. And an incomplete injury is the spinal cord sustains damage, but the integrity of the spinal cord, it does not completely come apart like a rope that's still got some fibers attached, right? And in that situation, there is much more hope. And so they have they can a ton of it has to do with how fast they get to your surgery. Is a lot of it's speed, how fast you start doing rehab, and they set you on your best track. And then a lot of it has to come from the individual, because it is an absolute nightmare. I mean, everything. I couldn't. I had a feeder. I had people dress me. I had a colostomy bag. Then I had to go through a voiding trial, and I couldn't cath myself once I got rid of the colostomy bag because my hands. So my wife had to learn how to cath me, and you just hope that you can reawaken your body and reawaken those connections through mass repetition and electricity. So they talk a lot about if you ever hear somebody in my world talk about STEM, it's not stem cells, it's stimulation. So my friend RJ and Grant, I got it into a research study, and I'm bouncing around. You can always kind of pull me back, but there's just so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I was fortunate enough. Dr. Candy Terfatiller is just an absolute genius, and the way they do spinal cord rehab is they have 6 doctors that operate like project managers, and they have a team, and you have like a OT, a PT, speech, all these different areas that you are going to, because it's all about the road to independence. And the average stay at Craig's like 92 days or something. Some people are there forever and a very long time, and some people are there for a couple weeks. But in the amount of time where they're fighting and advocating for you with the insurance company and trying to get you back to a life and that you can start, because you never stop, right? I mean, people ask me if I still do rehab, and it's like my whole life is rehab. Everything I do, I get on the ground and play with my kids. And sorry, I'm getting a little off track here, but I mean, you have to go all in. That's why when I found out about your podcast, I was like, yeah, I'll do your podcast. Everything in my life is all in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in as a dad. I'm all in as a husband. I'm all in to get better. And it's the road to independence. So they have this 3-month time frame on average to help you get you the tools and the mentality to get back to doing things on your own, right? So I had to relearn how to dress myself, be able to. I still can't cut meat very good, right? But feed yourself. They have people that teach you how to drive, and when you become paralyzed, they take your license. I don't know who talks to who, but somebody at the DMV finds out, and so Craig has individuals that their sole job is to help you figure out how to drive again if you're able. And is that moving the blinker? Is that what are the things that because if you can't be mobile, if you can't drive, how independent can you be?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So everything is about the road to independence. And they kind of put you on this journey. I was blessed to be about the 50th member of an upper extremity study where they put panels all over my body, my upper body, and electrocuted me. And it's a lot more complicated than that. And these 2 fellows, RJ and Grant, just lifted my arms for 45 minutes while I tried to lift them myself, because they told me I'd never pick up my kids again, probably because I wouldn't have the trunk strength. And the next day I went back and did another motion for 45 minutes, and we did that for like 6 weeks. And then I was in a second study when my big sister really pushed me to get into, and it was towards the end of my outpatient therapy, and it was getting so hard to be away from home, and we wanted to get back to some semblance of life again, but where they put the spinal stem pads on my spine and electrocuted my spine. And again, Dr. Terfatiller, I know it's much more complicated than that, But and I was in an exoskeleton for gait training, and I walked around in this robot for 45 minutes, and I did that for 6 weeks, you know, 3 times a week. And those are the things, and just a piece of the rehab that I did. You know, my OT Haley, one time I always tell people try to get a guy, because you know you can make friends with a guy and maybe they'll go easy on you, because it doesn't matter how much of a friend you are, the women are sticklers. And this Haley watched me try to put a sock on for like 25 minutes one time, and I was like, man, like it. My wife would have done this for me by now. Like, we can try. Can we do sock training tomorrow? I can't do this anymore today. But you know what? I got the sock on, and I learned how to put my pants on. And the way I learned how to put my pants on was I didn't, but the pants were looped, and they were tied off, and I put my hand in there, and I was able to get my pants up using the loop. Her first plan was to have me put my legs out and reach my pants. And I don't know about you, but I was a 38-year-old, 240 plus pound alcoholic, and I hadn't touched my toes in quite some time. Right. And so I was like, you want me to do what? You want me to put my legs out in front of me, and you want me to reach the pants? I was like, we got to come up with something better than this, you know? And, but I did. I learned how to put my clothes on, and then all the things. And by the grace of God, I learned how to use the bathroom again on my own, which was just like unbelievable, you know? And there's so many comical stories that, you know, if you can't laugh when you're going through this thing, it's going to be pretty challenging.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah. And I'm happy to share anything about all those experiences. And then we got home, and one of my best bros in the world, Barkley Clark, at the same time, he was living down the street from Craig, and he had come to visit me, and he would help me, and he would feed me sometimes, and he got into running, and I don't know, I forget how Barkley got into running, but I was watching him on Facebook running, and my OT Emma Cobbs is a stud, does marathons, and I'm still mostly in a wheelchair at that time, and I thought I'm gonna run again. And really the only person that I think maybe believed me and was my wife, and everyone else just nodded their head and said, yeah, sure, Ken, and we'll support you in that. And I told the PM, Dr. Berliner, hey, I want to learn how to run. And he was like, yeah, right, maybe one day. He like laughed, and I love Dr. Berliner, and I don't blame him for laughing, but he's like, maybe one day a long way from now, with a sports medicine specialist. And I said, well, what do I got to do to run right now? And he said, well, you got to go see your neurosurgeon. So that was in March, and so I wheeled back to see Dr. Raul Singh at UC Memorial Brain and Spine, and he looked at my scans, and he said, you know, because of the impact of running, right? You know, I have broken my neck, right? Like, and he looks at everything, and he said, yeah, you could try to run again. And so I got the okay. And the last months I was at Craig, they started work with me in their first class facility. I started to learn how to run on an Alter G, which is like a treadmill you get on and you strap yourself into, and it blows air up and it lowers your body weight.
Oh,
it's pretty sick. Yeah. When I learned how to walk, it was on a Vectra machine, right? And I was tied to the ceiling, and it would take me 45 minutes to cross a room, right? I mean, that's how low functioning I was. Like to go 50 yards would take me 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it on my own. I had to be tied to the ceiling, right? I mean, I had to rebuild myself from absolutely, I would say, back of zero. I wouldn't even call it zero. It was worse than that.
Yeah.
And I just kept getting better, and it was slow, and it was long, and it was absolutely the most horrible experience. I could not explain to you how horrible it was. I don't even know the words, but I kept getting better, and I just thought, you know, I am going to get better. I have to get better. I've got to be a dad. I'm going to pick up my kid again, right? If you have a kid, you want to pick up your kid. And I did all that, and then, we kind of fast forward, and we had the Break Your Neck 5K in September of 2024, and less than a year from the day I broke my neck and was completely paralyzed, I ran a 5K in 45 minutes with this community support, with the university as a partner, and we had over 300 people there, and we raised over $30,000, and it was just part of my plan, and I'll never stop. I'm all in on giving back, because I don't know if you're familiar with the for those who can't, right? But there's so many people that have had something happen similar, or car wrecks, or my friend Jeff in Missouri, he was hit by a drunk driver, right? And I mean, talk about just, I was like, didn't even want to talk to this guy, right? Being as I'm an alcoholic, I've been in moving a collision, and thankfully no one was significantly hurt, but like, to already going through this mental, like, I was completely mentally broken down to zero. And like, the way I look at that is, if you're a 38-year-old alcoholic, even if you're not an alcoholic, you're kind of like, you're Pangea, right? You're formed in your brain, right? You have your neural pathways, you've got your cognitive, behavioral, I go to this way, this is easy, I do this, and it's kind of, you're formed. And the tectonic plates went off and broke my mind into the 7 continents. I mean, that's just the best way I could describe it. Mm-hmm. And that's what gave me an opportunity, I think, to rebuild everything, because I was not stuck to the past anymore. And everything I did, I built with the pillars of faith, family, and purpose. And I've continued on that path every day for 2 years and 8 months, or whatever it is, to improve my body, to get my body back, to get my family back, to be the man I hope my daughters can be proud of one day. Mm-hmm. And I still fail every day, just like everybody else. And my little girls, I mean, it's like we're growing up together sometimes, and because I'm really have a lot of struggles with still physically, and I had to have a second surgery because through all this running, and due to the location of the first fusion at the T1, which is kind of a hinge point on your back, right? It's kind of like right here, that hump that goes down into your thoracic spine. One of the screws broke, and so then the doc told me, and again, Dr. Allsing, unbelievable man, called me after the second race, says, I've never done this. You have to come back and see me. Never called a patient. You have to come back. And he explained to me basically that my neck was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? And who knows when, but one day that tower will go down, right? And that it was slowly compressing my spine, causing significant pain down my left side. I have a lot more left side weakness. This hand is much, much more capable than this hand, right? And that's because a lot of reasons. The damage, I think, is more extensive to my left side, but also when you're at Craig, they tell you to pick one hand to work on, mm-hmm. because it's mass reps. There's no point in splitting the reps, right? You can have 2 hands that just don't work at all, or you can have one hand you can make a life with. Mm-hmm. So I'm right-handed, so I chose my right hand. But anyway, slowly, I was in a significant amount of pain, but he also told me that I could have catastrophic failure, which basically is like my head falling off my body. And I was like, well, he's also a character too. He breaks this all down for me, and he goes, so the nurses say I'm really behind. So do you want to do this surgery? I was like, can I have like a minute? 'Cause like, you want me to have another spine surgery? But we went forward with it on 12/29. I had a second fusion, and I dropped the fusion down from the C1 to the T1, and from the T1 to the T4.
That was in 25?
No, yeah, just 6 months ago. And so now my fusion is extended from the C4 to the T4, and they put the new rods in, put in the new hardware, took out the broken hardware, and it has been a very challenging process. But he did not tell me that there could be a lot of good that came out of that. So what I tell anybody is, you want to talk about going all in. If I hadn't gone all in and I hadn't run my ass off and I hadn't broke that screw, I could have never recovered to the point I have right now. Now, I'm not as fast as I was. I still got a long way to go. But he went in there because now he had time and could make a plan. And he pulled my spine back up and he relieved the pressure off of my spinal cord. And so I wake up in significant pain. I still limp around sometimes, but nothing like I did before. And, I tell anyone, break the screw, whatever it is, go break it. Because had I not done that, yeah, it's been a significant challenge, this second surgery.
Yeah.
But the quality of life I will have, because I never stopped. I never put my foot off the gas. My family never stopped supporting me. My wife and children have never stopped supporting me in this crazy journey and this community. Then I would not have this opportunity to.
Yeah.
I helped my daughter ride a bike the other day. I held the bike up while my daughter, she's 6 going on 7, 6, 7. And had to get that in there. The Pope could do it, I could do it.
Yeah, exactly,
And,
exactly.
But I went all in on my spiritual rebuild. I went all in on my life rebuild, my body rebuild, and I just keep getting better.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot. I probably just talked way too long.
You gave a really good in-depth story, and I appreciate that. The viewer definitely appreciates that. There's been a lot of people from past podcasts, when they hear such a inspiring story, I don't know what it is about. I think it's the challenge they face, that they're like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe this person went through that. And just talking with you a little bit, I can tell like you're a very intelligent person, and you have the mindset of, I'm just going to keep going no matter what. You face a point in your life where all of this was uncertain, and the road to recovery was uncertain, and everything was just like uncertainty. And to see where you're at now from where you were is so, it's crazy, because people take life for granted. And to hear a story that impactful is motivating, but I would say more so inspiring to know that people can do it no matter what kind of obstacle or challenge, So dude, I appreciate you sharing that with me. I'm curious, like when you first went through the injury and you were going through all of this mental struggle in the hospital, was there a point when it first happened and the doctors were like, oh shit, did you think for 1 second like, man, I may not make it through this alive?
Well, right when they told me about it, he was very upfront. He's like, you could die on the table. That's why we left the voicemail for my daughter, said goodbye to my parents. My sister showed up right when I was getting wheeled back and all that. And then, I did wake up alive, and that, yes, that's the first step. Right. And, I couldn't leave room for an idea that I couldn't get better. Right. Also, you only have so much capacity, no matter how intelligent you are, no matter what. If you want to think about it like bandwidth, right? No matter what is, you're going to use up all your bandwidth, right? And if so much of your brain is devoted just to keeping you alive, right? Then there's not a lot of space for anything else. And so you don't have, I didn't allow for the small amount of capacity I had remaining to me. I just couldn't have any doubt. Mm-hmm. I couldn't. I would things that would happen, like I realized when I had a power chair and a manual chair, and the manual chair I would like pull with my feet and I could push with my arms, but my arms were very much useless. And so I'd be like, I would use the power chair. And one day I realized, like, I'm leaning on this power chair, and I parked it and I never got in it again. No matter after 7 or 8 hours of a full day of rehab. And if it took me 2 hours to get back to my room, right, I refused to take the power chair anymore. And I don't know if you, when I was a kid on TBS, Smoking the Bandit was always playing, and me and my brother would watch Smoking the Bandit with my dad. And the Jerry Reed song, they've got a long, long way to go and a short time to get there. We're going to do what they say can't be done. And I would just put that in my mind. Like, we're going to do what they say can't be done. I am not going to live like this. My wife is not going to have to live like this, and my kids are not going to, no matter what, they're not going to know an alcoholic father. Right. And then just like, I don't know if this makes any sense, but I had this green faux finish wall in my house, this giant, like 30-foot wall. And it never bothered me, right? Because my capacity, I couldn't even see the wall. And then one day I looked at it and I was like, that is the ugliest wall I've ever seen. Because we just bought that house like 6 months before my accident. And I immediately changed the wall. But my bandwidth couldn't even see the wall until I got better enough. And then one day I was like, has it been like this the whole time? You know what I mean? This is horrible, and then that's part of, to me, it was like almost like, oh my God, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Because every home I've ever been in, I've improved.
Yeah.
Right. And
so did you paint the wall?
No, I
didn't
didn't paint it. My friend Brandon Henderson and Henderson Bros, whoop, whoop, they came and painted it. Although I will say that I went to PCC and did like a clinic with the OTs and PTs combined, and it was so cool because they had been paying attention to my story, and they knew from my Instagram that I wanted to paint this wall, and I'd been putting up AI photos of different colors, and they set up a paint station, and like, how would I paint a wall if I had to do it? And so I'm like trying to get this tape on the wall, and I'm like, well, this is how I would do it. And then I got the roller, and I was like, okay. And I go, maybe I will paint the wall. And somebody shouted from the back, don't do it. So no, I did not paint.
Yeah.
I got it painted. It's a beautiful blue color now.
Okay.
And
Man.
it looks wonderful. But that's the mindset, is like, how can I adapt to do this? How, like, it's so funny, like living through COVID or whatever, and all the germophobia and all that nonsense. And but when you go to the spinal cord hospital, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I carry my keys in my mouth, right? Because what am I going to do? Leave my keys? Or it's a nightmare for me to get stuff out of my pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go to the store, I tell, like, my daughter, I always say, like, I can't open a produce bag, but she can.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my daughter go to the store. I get the bag, and then my daughter opens it, and then we fill it up together.
Mm-hmm.
And like, these memories we're making, they make it all worthwhile. Like,
Yeah.
it's so hard. I and I've been through some stuff like that where, I've been blessed to be fairly successful in life, and I've always worked really hard. I just don't quit at anything. I don't quit it trying to ruin my life. It's just as hard as I haven't quit it trying to make my life better. But I remember one time I went to the store, and I went to Sam's Club, and I was so like weak and so tired, but I got through it, right? And I went to buy the Sam's Club, and my card didn't work. So I went over to the membership thing, and I got the temporary membership, went back, and then something had happened, a fraud alert or something happened on my credit card, and I'm 40 years old, right? And it was so much of a trial for me to do this, to go to the store on my own and do these things, that I couldn't imagine putting the groceries back and leaving. Mm-hmm. So I called my dad, and I was like, hey, Dad, can you come buy my groceries? You know, like, which it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you have been so far removed from needing any help like that, it was one of the hardest phone calls I ever made. And obviously he was there instantly. It's my dad. You know, he was there for me. He would have been there to do everything, but I wanted to do it on my own, man. And I wanted, you know, me and my daughters now, like my wife went back to work last July and she is just thriving. And it always say I had the easiest job in this whole thing, right? I had to just put my head down and get better. And everyone else had to, you know, captain the ship while I was out of commission. And what the people around me have done have given me so much motivation to just keep trying, right? And I'm like, I want to be able to watch my kids on my own, right? And my little girl Aria got big enough to help me with the pull-ups with my daughter Harper, who, you know, she was one. We learned how to walk together. Harper learned how to walk, started her first steps were on 1/8/2024, which was my sister's birthday. And I watched a video of it, and I watched this little 1-year-old take more steps than I could, you know, and so I learned how to walk with my 1-year-old, and in the power wheelchair, every 20 to 25 minutes, you are on a timer, and you have to tilt. So if you're at a rehab hospital, you'll just be walking along. I mean, if you can walk, good for you, and but you'll just see people pulled off to the side, tilted into the sky, and it's because that shifts your body. And that's how you prevent bed sores. Like, a lot of it is about preventing bed sores. This massive amount of effort goes into, because once you get them, they're like, it can be very devastating. And so, you know, every 20 minutes I would have to tilt. I'd be sitting there tilting, and Harper could sit on my chest. So there's these pictures, you know, with my little baby on my chest while I'm tilted and looking at the sky, you know, and that was my life, you know, tilting. Can you imagine? That was like your big move, to tilt, right? That, you know, that was just unbelievable. But anyway, you know, I learned how to walk with my 1-year-old, and then my wife could go back to work because Aria could help me with Harper, and then Harper got bigger and better, right? And now we're just this unit, right? And we just know we're gonna face it together, and it's been a great privilege in my life to go through this with these little girls and see their fire and their resiliency. Yeah. And we went to the university to get the new permit for the race with the legal department. I had to go through some things, and I had to get the permit signed off. And my daughter's like, "Daddy, is this where the race is? This is our race?" I said, "Yeah, this is our race." You know, and I'm
That's
just like,
sick.
Sick, bro. And, you know, I wish that in a lot of ways I wouldn't have had to get to this place in life without what I went through.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that all of us, you know, have all the tools we need. So I tell my kids, never change, grow. People tell you to change, fuck you. You know, excuse me, I've been trying to quit the F word, but you know, that's not true. You know, those little girls, they have everything they need ever right now, but they got to grow into it.
Yeah.
Right. And the situations in life, they're going to help you grow, you know, and that's, you know, the caterpillar becomes a butterfly, but it's all the same stuff. Right. And that's what I believe. You go, you know, the spirit of the resilient spirit inside all of us. That's what my race is about. Right. It's for everybody. It's for all abilities, all disabilities. It's about us all who are been kicked in the teeth, and we're all getting back up every day. I don't care who you are, you've been kicked in the teeth. And it's about what you do after that. You know, that's what defines you.
Like, we rise together.
That's right. We rise together.
Yeah, dude, I like that. That's so powerful. Within the whole process, because this happened in 2023, and you went through your second spinal surgery last year. I mean, it sounds like the recovery was in like blocks, like 6-week blocks. How long was the first like initial phase of recovery? Was that like 2 years, a year and a half?
Well, so 11/15, break the neck, total paralysis. December 7th, get to Craig. In February, in March, I finished the outpatient time at Craig, and that was a wild time. You know, like I was able to, you know, like I was telling you, walk with attached to the ceiling, right? But then the insurance company was like, okay, we're done paying for inpatient care. And they're like, well, Craig is an advocate for you. And they're like, well, he can't cath himself. And somebody had put in the notes that my wife could cath me because I wanted to go to the Super Bowl party at my brother's house. And if I didn't have been able to empty my bladder, they wouldn't let me out of the hospital. So they taught my wife how to cath me. And the insurance company says it doesn't matter. His wife can cath him. And then they said, well, he's not walking yet. And they said, doesn't matter. We bought a wheelchair. Get him out. Right. And then Craig's incredible. They have outpatient apartments, and they offer that for free for 28 days to do your outpatient therapy. So we went home for 1 week, and that was one of the hardest weeks of all time. We were not prepared at all for that. My wife, she didn't even used to like to drive outside of Pueblo. Right now she's cruising up to Denver every, we're back and forth, and the kid, they would sleep in the hospital room like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they would come home. We try to keep some normalcy. My daughter was going to John Newman for pre-K, and I shout out John Newman. They put my daughter on scholarship. And just a brief aside, like my friends Casey and Victoria started to go fund for my family, and that raised quite a bit of funds to help us get through this thing. And the people who didn't want to use GoFundMe reached out to us privately, and we received, like, John Newman put my daughter on scholarships. They didn't want her to have to lose her place at school. Mm-hmm. And that was critical to our society. Has a lot of protections for emergencies like this. We're not going to leave people out in the cold to die. Mm-hmm. But to get to through those windows, it is quite a large financial burden. And shout out to every single person out there that supported my family in our darkest hour. Thank you. You know who you are. And anyway, we were able to, that's just a small piece of it, right? Mm-hmm. And like we have mortgage forbearance, which is a great program where basically for 12 months, your mortgage is in abeyance. But you have to apply for it. You have to get approved for it. And that takes time. And the whole time, right, the bills are stacking. So, there were things like that,
kind of stacked up over time.
But like you got to get there to get to the approval. And then, okay, you can stay in your home. It's better for society if they don't kick us out on the street, right? Yeah. It's better for the mortgage company if they don't have to kick you out and go through the foreclosure process. So, we were able to get the forbearance, but you got to get there, mm-hmm. and it's a process. And there's so much uncertainty, and I was crazy for most of that process time,
yeah.
And but anyway, once we were in the outpatient, and that's a really different environment too, because I'll talk about being all in is, whenever you're an inpatient, you're under rehab's a full-time job. You're in a hospital sitting 24/7. When you go outpatient, it goes to like 6 hours a week of PT and OT. And there's these crazy rules. Like if you can do the PT and OT on the same day, the insurance will only count it as 1 hour. Oh. And so Craig is versed in all this, all the things that I would have no idea. And then, but I was, got into these research studies, and then I was like, I'll spend my last dollar to get my legs back. And, so I paid, they have the Peak Rehab Center. And so I was like, load me up. So I didn't go from 40 hours a week of rehab to 6. I maintained like a 25 or 30 hour a week rehab schedule during that outpatient time. So I was doing 40 hours a week of rehab, then 25, and then my wife would go with me to these sessions and make notes. My wife's stud athlete, and she would, we would go back. So I really maintained like 40 hours a week of rehab all the way through. And once you're comfortable in the gym, then I came home, and Paul Andrade helped me into his gym. And then at that point, I had enough, like rehab is life, you know what I mean? I built my own routines in my house, in the Iron Paradise, and most of it is, and then we started the running thing, which we started in Mineral Palace Park and in June, and I could run for like 30 seconds or less. And running is a very loose term. I don't know if you're familiar with like competitive walking in the Olympics, but your one heel has to always be on the ground. And
Okay, yeah,
if
yeah,
it's technically a jog or a run if both feet are in the airborne.
yeah.
So I could do that for like 28 seconds, and then we'd walk. But I knew I wanted to do a 5K, so we'd always do that. If it took an hour and a half or 2 hours, we would do 3 miles. And then, like I said, I went from 28 seconds worth of jogging, and a lot of different people, my friend Ike Hepburn, and I don't want to really forget anybody, but my bro Mike Martinez and Nicole Clemente and Victoria Edwards, and mostly Barkley and my wife. But a lot of people would, because I'm on the buddy system, right? I am not allowed to do anything on my own, right? Because, they said, do whatever you want to do, don't fall down, right? You know what I mean? That was the deal. And, but we trained and trained and trained and trained, and I got to that 45-minute 5K, and I ran into the Thunder Bowl it was crazy. It was like a Hallmark movie. Like, my friend ran back and met me after he finished, and my other friend ran back and met me, and TK, who the president of the foundation offered up the Thunder Bowl to host the race, was waiting for me and my buddy Lou Gonzalez. And I ran into the Thunder Bowl with my family, my wife pushing a double stroller, my brother by my side, my best friends, and the student athletes, and people lining the sides of it's on YouTube. It's sick. And I crossed the finish line, and then you can hear me, and I have my cousin and my brother, my cousin Brandon, and he goes, I go, don't drop me. Have you ever seen Any Given Sunday?
No.
Oh, dude, you gotta watch it.
TV show?
No, the movie with Al Pacino and Jamie Foxx.
Let me put a note. Every Given Sunday?
Any Given Sunday.
Any Given Sunday.
But Lawrence Taylor plays this linebacker in the movie, and he makes his tackle for his $1 million bonus, and he's all, don't drop me. I'm worth $1 million.
I bet you felt like that.
I did, dude. Don't drop me, And it's also got one of the greatest all-time halftime speeches ever recorded. Al Pacino talks about that's what living is. It's the 6 inches in front of your face. Dude, I used to listen to that all the time to motivate myself. But
so it was like a year from when you got injured to when you were actually able to finish that 5K.
Yeah, I mean, it's an astronomical route.
I don't think that's like, realistically, if like, I guess from the outside looking in, you did the impossible.
As close to it.
Like,
I'm as humbly as I can say it, I didn't do it, right? God did it. I did it. My family did it.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah.
But it is crazy to think about what we did. It is impossible. Like I said, the doctor, when I first said I want to run, he laughed and said, maybe one day, a long time from now, with a sports medicine therapist.
mm-hmm.
And 6 months later, I ran a 45-minute 5K.
Bro, that's insane.
And then next year, we got down to 38 minutes, and I got a recumbent bike, which is sick, because, this is how delusional I am. I was with Dr. Singh, and he was like, hey, well, you could bike. Like, after the surgery, in like a post-op type of thing. Like, this is after I'm kind of walking and all that. And I was like, bike? Like, I don't know if I could fall off a bike. And he looked at me like, this guy's crazy. He's an idiot, And then after the second surgery, he said the same thing. And I finally figured out he meant like a stationary bike,
mm-hmm.
not a regular bike, And I was like, I shouldn't be biking, What if I fell off of it? But I got a recumbent bike. And my brother-in-law, Sean, and I, we trained, and I did the Denver Century Ride, and I did 85 of the 100 miles on my recumbent bike, which is like you're sitting like this, pedaling like this.
Oh, okay, yeah,
It took me 9 hours
to get it done.
Did it done, and at the last 20 miles, my ass strength was so weak that I couldn't start from stops, and my brother-in-law, Sean, had to push me. But once you start cycling, you can cycle. I mean, you can pedal, and I did that for 20 miles. But we got it done, and it's just like, I am not, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? I just cannot stop, you know?
Yeah. Have you always had that mindset?
Pretty much, you know, but it just was never directed in the right ways. But like, it wasn't. So, I mean, like, so what Mike Zvislin and his family and the Morelands have built, Michelle and Steven, shout out to them. Like, the little things that you don't know matter so much. We've got 2 awesome dogs, but, you know, what do you do with them? And when we were going back and forth to Denver for the outpatient stuff, and they would watch our dogs. Like, I mean, that's just something that was so massive that you wouldn't even think about, you know, because we're going to kennel them all the time. I mean, money's tight, and they just raised their hands and said, we'll watch the dogs. And that's just a small thing. But, you know, when we were at Southwest, I mean, what we built, we're in Pueblo, Colorado, and to tell somebody, you know, and it at one time we were selling 1 out of 5 used cars on the road. And just to give you an idea, the CarMax in Colorado Springs was selling the same number of cars as us, but they had a 3% market share. We had a 20%, right? And 1 out of 5. It's crazy, you know, but I was all in there too, you know? And so that's been my mindset most of my life. You know, when you get devoted to something, you get your teeth in it. I'm not going to let go. And I just got sidetracked there for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I made some bad personal choices, and then I let that snowball, and basically I decided to ride that out, you know, to death, right? And it took something of this magnitude to help me course correct. So now my whole life's devoted to staying on course.
Yeah. Do you think if this accident didn't happen, you would have been able to kind of re-navigate your life with alcohol, or do you think you still would have been, you know, going through that struggle within your own life?
You know, I don't know what it would have taken. I like to believe that, you know, God had a plan or whatever, and that something, I was trying to turn it around. I mean, I was actively aware that I was physically, you know, I was like 240, 250, and I was always like, there's pictures, you could see them, but I was totally unhealthy. And I knew that I was dropping the ball, right? Like every plate in the spinning plate was coming to crash down. And I had a mindset where like, but I don't know what it would have taken. I don't know if my wife would have packed up, if, you know, an intervention wouldn't have done it. Maybe if they would have sent me to a rehab somewhere, maybe, I don't know. I do know, like, the Break Your Neck, when I came up with the name of my 5K, it's the Break Your Neck 5K with the 10K option. But it was, a lot of it was about, like, if you want radical life change, it takes something like that. Now, I hope, I tell other people, do whatever it takes to change. You know, you've got it within you to change any trajectory you're on. But it's going to take everything you have. You cannot leave anything, right? You cannot leave anything back. You can't leave one single exit door, right? You know what? Burn the boats, man.
Dude, I've been hearing that phrase for the past like 3 weeks, and I feel like it's a sign, it's something like I need to change within my own life. You're like the 3rd person to say that within physically 2nd person to say that within the past 2 weeks. Just the words burn the boats within the past 3 weeks. And someone told me this when I first started doing this consistently. He's like, burn the boats. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you never heard that? So he explained it. I was like, oh my God, that's like, okay, cool. And now I've been like hearing it. I had a guest on again, and he was like, burn the boats. And then I was scrolling through social media, and some guy was like, burn the boats. And now you're telling me burn the boats. And I'm like, that has to be a sign.
Well, bro, your podcast is about burning the boats. That's all in. That's all in. That's what it means, right? I am, because most everything, right, you always have an exit strategy. Or let's say you even give 80%, that means you left 10% on the table, right? You didn't, and I'm talking about if you want to make radical life change, right? Like, I'm not talking about a sideline or you're going right, but you want to go on a little scenic drive, check out something else, or you just want to get a little more fit, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I'm going north, I want to go south.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you want to do something and you want to go all in, then you cannot leave anything. You cannot hold anything back. You cannot have a parachute. Right? And I was placed in a position where there was none. Right? I was either going to lay on that table and I was going to get taken care of for the rest of my life. Right? And that's what that for those who can't is about, because like I was saying with the complete injury, it doesn't matter your willpower. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter. My friend Brett is the most amazing man. I am so blessed. I've met some people through this journey that are just, I feel like I've achieved nothing because I know their struggle. I have a small glimpse into their world, and he has a C6 complete injury. And probably when I was in like freshman in high school, and he was probably a sophomore at CU, but he had a motocross accident and he was completely paralyzed from the neck down. And this guy, you should look him up on Instagram. Brett Colonel is an artist, and he finished his engineering degree. He got his MBA. Okay. And then he required so much support. He said there were job opportunities, but he would have to move, and his family's in northern Colorado and these things. And so he figured out that he could paint with his mouth. And he is an amazing painter. If I was an octopus and I had 8 hands, I could not paint anything as good as Brett does with his mouth. He is a stud. And you watch him in his chair, and he turns his head and he dabs it in the paint, and he just is unbelievable. And you're telling me that guy's all in to live, to make a purpose in his life, right? And so everything I'm doing is for me, it's for my family, it's for the gift God gave me. But those people that can't have the recovery I have, they work harder than I do, right? Every day, just to live, right? And so that's why I am so motivated all the time to just keep pushing, right? And also, I would be remiss not to say that I've really had obviously being an alcoholic and all these things, and I refuse to ask for help for most things in my life. I'm extremely capable, and so I've just always believed I could do it, right? I could shoulder the burden. I could get it done. I could face whatever mountain was in front of me till I found a mountain I couldn't climb on my own. And reduced to absolutely nothing, like I told you, laying there, is when I finally turned to my Lord and Savior and said, I can't do this. I cannot do this without you. I cannot beat this demon. I cannot climb this hill, right, without Jesus Christ, right? And when I finally was humbled enough to say, God, help me, then every door started to open.
Have you always been like a faithful man?
Lip service, since I was a young man, I've always believed in God. And, we went to church, we went to church camps. I tithed for a very long time. I kind of, but I always kind of lived that, when I go to church, I'm, when I say the right things, and, but I was a grade A alcoholic. I was a 100% partier, never met a drink I didn't like, had a lot of fun, skied a lot of slopes. And then when I had some things happen in my life, and then, like I said, I made some pretty poor choices, and then you start going downhill, and I started going faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. But I always had that mindset, like, I'll be fine. I can, And I did. I mean, every time I would have like a speed bump or a different thing, I would rebound and I would just keep going. And I never, and so I could never, I would say that's kind of a long answer. Yes, I always have had a faith. I've always believed in God, but I never had the strength to admit I could do nothing without him until I could not. And until I was physically unable to do anything. And then now that I've been given this great gift, and I it's a symbiotic relationship, right? Like he gave me the doors, but I had to walk through them, right? And I had to, my friend John Snyder, he has a church, New Life Church over here, and I've never been a fan of people that are falsely humble, right? Like Michael Jordan is the best. And if you ask Michael Jordan, he will tell you he's the best. And it's not fake, right? And then he shows that, right? But so I didn't want to say like, oh, I just sat back and got better, because I didn't. I worked harder on getting better than everything I've ever done in my life. If you added it all up and then threw like an exponent on it, I would say the last 2 years have been harder than everything I've ever done. And I had to get out of bed. I had to wake up, right? I had to put in the extra time. We had to figure out how to get me back up there to that exoskeleton, right? All of that. So I didn't want to try to tell people like, oh yeah, God's going to save you. You know what I'm saying? But I also know that everything I have is because of him. So John Snyder looked at me and I said, how do I say this? He goes, that's easy, Ken. God gave you the will to work. And I was all, well, geez, John, that was easy. So, God put that will to work inside of me. And then he put the right people in front of me. I had a great relationship with Channel 5 from when I was my first job. And the general manager, Ross White, said, hey, Diane Derby picks her own stories, but let me tell her yours. Right? So then Diane Derby, unbelievable human being, she called one day out of the blue. I answered, and she's like, oh, I want to tell your story. And, that was really got my race off the ground. I mean, I still would have had it, but I don't think it would have been what it was. Right? And that's just a small thing. And Mike Lenning, AMR, thank you, AMR.
Mike.
Hey, Mikey.
You know Mike?
Mike. And do you know Mike?
I do know Mike.
Yeah.
How did you meet Mike? Through that whole
Well,
incident?
it's funny. You just think about this crazy story. I sold him a car when I was at Southwest Motors, and he's watching the story ran in the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, and he recognized me. He was so moved by my story and AMR's part in it that he called me and became a founding sponsor of my race. And so AMR...
No shit.
Yeah, is that crazy?
That is crazy.
So all these pieces, right? Like I sold him a car. We treated him good. I did my follow-up. Bang. Then on this over here, but he would have never found out about my race, I'm certain, had they not done the news story, and other people who have been, were just placed there. And like Barkley and I have been friends since 8th or 9th grade. And why was he in Denver at the time I was at Craig Hospital? And why did he have the time to come see me? And then he moved home when I did. And I don't know who I would have run with or learned how to run with. I don't know who that person would have been, because I could never have done it on my own. Right? And me and Barkley have been making videos. We ran like 400 or 500 miles together, first off. And second off, we've been making videos for 3 years promoting our race. And, I'm not shooting videos, guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I am not doing selfies, okay? It's just things like that, and then my wife and my kids and my parents, my brother and his background, being able to advocate, and having Southwest Motors behind me, and I at Thornton Medical. I was like exhausted by all the work I was putting in, and I was, kind of down one day, and I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to do this race again. This is a lot of work. I mean, I learned how to run again. Does anyone even care what I'm doing, right? Does anyone even watch my videos? And Brian and Charnel Mayer called me up, and they said, hey, we want to be a co-presenting sponsor for the Break Your Neck 5K2. And bang, I was like, I guess I'm going to do it then, and just every time I feel like I can't do this anymore, does anyone care? I'll get a message about, or run into somebody who's like, man, just keep doing what you're doing, and so I don't have a lot of answers. All I know is I'm not going to stop, and like Aaron Aragon, we talked about Aaron Aragon and Matt Smith and those guys and Vern Larson and for them to step up through this whole process to make this possible. And I could just go on every single Print Pros. I love this street, Evans, that we're on. Angelus Chapel. Me and Barkley were running on the Riverwalk at night, and we're just about to film a video, and the McCulleys are sitting there right in front of the place. It's not the place anymore, but that's actually where I met my wife. And we're just about to make our video, and I'm running, and they start screaming, Kenny White, Kenny White, Kenny White. And they're like, we love what you're doing, and they've been a founding sponsor. And Anthony and Sheena Velasquez at Print Pros up the street, I told them what I was doing, and Anthony's like, we'll make the banners, don't worry about it.
Damn.
And like, so Evans has been good to me. I love Go Bessemer.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
And now here I am, and here I am on Evans again.
Yeah, they actually made all the banners you see.
Oh, I
here.
see. I mean, and they also have a great ice cream shop out in the county.
Yes. The
Planet Ice Cream.
Planet Ice Cream.
Right.
Yeah.
But like to have people like that, and they're like, it's just been overwhelming. Yeah, the people that have stepped up and the good that. And every time I'm just like, my wife, she's like, Barkley's here. I'm like, yeah, we're going to go for a walk. We're going to run. We're going to make another video. She's like, okay, but she's just still supporting, you know, and people just say, so I'm all in on my recovery. I'm all in on giving back and showing gratitude. And through like my race, it's all about the gratitude to her. All the, that's who I give back to. And so the first portion of the proceeds, it's a nursing scholarship at the college. It's the Dr. Raoul Singh Nursing Scholarship, because how do you thank the man that saved your life, right? I mean, so I named a scholarship after him, and I had a lot of nurses, believe it or not, through this crazy ordeal that went to school at CSU Pueblo, and I've got deep ties to CSU Pueblo through my sister, through my own. I have a partial MBA through the college, and I love CSU Pueblo and TK and the foundation and all of that, and then I give the portion of the money back to Craig for research, and that Craig is at the front lines of spinal cord injury research and TBI research. And so that not only helps people in Colorado, but people around the world.
Yeah.
And then I was able to get in touch with Mount Carmel because I wanted to, my family, there's a lot of...
The church, right?
No, the veterans organization.
At CSUP?
No, they're a big veterans organization. They've been around for 10 years.
Mount Carmel.
Mount Carmel, 10 years. And they do so much for veterans. And I was able to get in touch with the colonel who put me in touch with the Sal Katz, who runs the Southern Colorado branch. And I wanted to support disabled veterans and the disabled veteran community because I wanted to get them to my race. And Sal invited us to be a sister event to the Colorado Challenge Series, and we're going to give a portion of the race proceeds back to adaptive equipment for disabled veterans. And then they're going to steward those funds because I don't know how I would find those people to give the money to. So those are the three tiers of all the funds. 100% of the proceeds for the Break Your Neck 5K, 10K go back to the mission. Nobody keeps any money. It does cost a little bit of money to throw the race, but that's why we have sponsors, and it's free because I want there to never be a barrier to entry. So everybody's welcome, all abilities, all disabilities, right? And we've had a great response. We went from 300 to 500. We're hoping to 1,000. People donate to Fable, but the race is free. It's free to participate. It's open to all. And that's made possible by the support of this community, the generous support of the runners and the rollers and the walkers and the businesses that support my race. And it's not really my race anymore. It's a lot bigger than that.
Yeah. When is the race?
It's September 5th this year. It's on Saturday, September 5th, kickoff Labor Day weekend. It's at the CSU Thunderbolt. And it starts at registration 7:30. Race starts at 8:30. We're gonna have we have a flyover to kick it off. It was
That's sick,
bro. They flew over to America the Beautiful, and because we're not in the stadium, they came down to 500 feet and did some aerobatics. So we will rock you.
Yeah.
And then we I said a few brief words, and believe it or not, I do not talk a lot at the race. I really just I just kind of thank everybody for coming, and then let's get after it. You know? And Daylight Donuts gives everybody a donut at the finish line. No, thanks, Daylight Donuts, and the boys over there. And there's just been so much support. I just can't believe the amount of people that have come out of the woodwork to support what we're trying to do. And I'm so thankful that when you called, I mean, what perfect timing, right? I mean, we're 45 days out tomorrow.
That's crazy. Time's flying, man.
I can't believe we're going to lace up for the Break Your Neck 5K 3.0.
Third season of it?
Third one.
Damn, man. Congrats. Congrats. That's so inspiring to hear your whole story. And I think people are going to listen to this and also think it's inspiring too. But it's not just because of like the whole situation. I think it has to do about how you overcame the situation and how you're still overcoming all these struggles and obstacles that get thrown your way. And really, that's a big part of like what I'm wanting to do, is just have people express how they're going all in different shapes and forms, and just have a raw conversation, have that real story. So to have you on is awesome, man. I didn't know anything about you, so I appreciate it. And I gotta appreciate Aaron too, because he's the one who put me in touch with you. He's like, here's his number, tell him I said to go on the show and talk about his story. I'm like, okay, cool, awesome. And we made it happen, man. I'm thankful we were able to make it happen on such short notice. It just all fell together at the right place at the right time, dude.
Well, to anyone who watches this, anyone who watches us online, thank you. Thank you. Come run with us, 9-5. Come run, walk, or roll with us. Invite your friends. Like I said, the race is free. You can Google Break Your Neck 5K. I'm the only one, right? And, just spread the message. You can do it. You can overcome. And if you are facing a serious struggle, you're going to have to dig deep, and you might, have to quote unquote break your neck, but you can do it. But it's going to take that mindset, right? It's going to take everything you have. But the good news is it's inside of you, man. And that's my message.
I love it. You went into the closing. I usually lately I've been like to ask the guests like one piece of advice they would give to the viewer. And you just did that without even me having to ask you. You kind of read my mind right there, man. That was awesome. But I think this was so awesome, bro. It was so nice to actually sit down and get to know you and meet you and have a conversation outside of like the brief interactions we've had. So, man, it's always fun to connect with like-minded people. And
Amen.
Bring that into your circle and bring that energy into your circle, because sometimes you got to burn the bridges, man. You got to burn the boats in order to find the land you're looking for.
Maybe we could do a recap after the Break Your Neck 3. Come on back.
That would be sick. I'm so down for that. Even just like I don't know. I've been doing a whole bunch of video work, so we'll figure it out, man. I'm all about figuring
Why don't you host
out.
a all-in podcast at the finish line? I'll put. You don't have to answer now.
Okay.
You don't have to.
All right.
Hey, maybe I got a little ahead of myself.
No, that would be so cool. It'd be like what comes to mind is like the UFC commentators, like,
Exactly.
commentating on different things. Like
Yeah, we'd
what's
love to
happening.
have you, man.
Yeah, that
You
would
know?
be super sick. To be continued. We'll have that conversation. That would be so cool. That would be so awesome. Because I'm not a big runner, but you know what? I'm up for the challenge. Why not? 5K. That's only 3.5 miles.
3.1.
3.1.
3.1, dude. And I mean, there's a donut at the end. Clean Eats is gonna have some treats.
Oh, she was on last week.
She's badass, bro.
The week before that. Yeah, Stephanie's she's a hustler. I love her mindset. It's always fun.
Well, yeah,
connecting.
I mean, the nurses, they bring bananas and stuff before the race. I mean, UC Health comes down the spine team. It's a party. My adaptive, so we're gonna have a cycle difference. Gonna have some recumbent bikes there. The Angle Tech out of Colorado Springs. Like I said, we got the flyover. We could have you, but it's just you won't believe the energy's there because everybody's there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're fighting something, they've fought something, they're going through something. They had a family member that went through a spinal cord injury, or TBI, or alcoholism. I mean, it's crazy how much that impacts this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, little pieces of my story that they see, but we're all there for one thing, man, and that's because we can overcome.
I love it, dude. We can. It's all the power of your mind. You have control over your mind at the end of the day.
Amen. Amen.
And honestly, that's one piece of advice I would say. But we'll get out of here. I appreciate everybody for
Thanks for
tuning
listening.
in.
Come run with us.
Come run with us. This has been the All In Show. We went all in. Kenny White went all in with his conversation, and I hope it inspires just one person out there. But until next time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment down below what you liked most about his story.
Comment down below, repost, share, send private messages.
Exactly, the whole
DM.
9 yards. DM. Show love at the end of the day. Just show love. We'll catch you next time. Until next week.